If you think of any company in any industry, they've actually been successful over years, sometimes 40, sometimes 100 years, sometimes 7 years, but they've been successful serving the male customer. And that's great, and they are also males. And top of most companies are pretty much all male, and typically white male, especially in the US. That makes perfect sense, or made perfect sense back in the time when that's who your primary market was. But just like looking at any new business opportunity, if your market starts to shift, and you've got a new consumer base, you've got to start building to serve that consumer base. The piece that I saw on the day that I had the 3 things happen was, oh my goodness, we've got this huge market that I've been watching grow and experiencing personally firsthand through my work in home entertainment, plasma TVs and so on. And I started watching not only how I was being treated, but I was really keen on watching if a guy came in to buy a plasma TV and then he left, and then another couple came in and they bought a plasma TV. What was the return and exchange rate on the plasma TVs? Do you have any idea as to what really happened there? How much more often did the plasma come back if it was just him buying versus if he brought his wife along? 60% higher return rate. But when I started to actually do the research, where I'd go into stores on the weekend, and this is pre-Wolf, by the way. This is me leading home theater. And I would actually work with the sales teams, which at the time were mostly all guys. And I would say, oh my gosh, here comes a couple. What I want you to do is sell to her, and thereby sell to him. And they're like, what do you mean? So if you were my sales team, what I would say to you is when they come up as a couple, I want you to first reach your hand out to her and shake her hand and look her in the eye. And then shake his hand. And then when you take them in to do the actual demo of the equipment in the home theater room, I want you to actually ask her, what's your favorite movie? Just try it. And they're like, really? I said, just give it a try. And guess what? When they did that, what do you think happened to sales? Went up. What do you think happened to her reaction in terms of being in the sale? Oh my gosh. Whereas before, she would have said, you know what, I'm going to go look at something else in the store, and she would leave. And the odds of us actually closing that sale were much less. She would not only be engaged, but for no apparent reason, and we all stood around with our eyes open quite wide as well, she would start upgrading products for no apparent reason. And these were high-end audio-video type products, Denon, Mitsubishi, acoustic, Vienna acoustics, very, very expensive speakers, $5,000 a pair. This is not, $50 speakers. And she would, for no apparent reason, say, well, I like the sound of this, but do you have something a little higher end? And we would all look, a little higher end. Get her something a little higher end. And so they did in every single case. And in every single case, we closed the sale right there and then. She handed the credit card right to him and said, how fast can you get to my house? Every single time. He was in shock. He's like, I don't know what just happened here, but just keep talking to her. Because he's getting what he wants. Right? If you do the math on the 60% return and you extrapolate across our store base, this is the number, and it's a huge number. Multi-million dollars, $20 million we're losing just by not changing how we do this. In terms of the visual of men and sort of the buying power that has historically been the case everywhere, if we're now got a new consumer set, given the context I just gave you, what I saw is I see, oh my goodness, the women that we have at the top, which are few, they're not only not partnering together, because they're not, but their voices on the piece of innovation we really need to have, which is the fact that they're women, is never hitting the table. Because everything that came out of my mouth, and I'm a risk taker, in the cultures that I was in, I would morph it so that it would fit the culture, because that's the only way it would be accepted and executed. So doing a tops-down strategy, like she talked about over here, I didn't see that as having any chance of survival at all. So my visual is, if you think of corporations as a huge ice cube that's multi-dimensioned, that ice cube has been formulating over 50 years, 10 years, 15 years. And it's actually clear, so you think you can just run right through it. You've got an idea, but all of a sudden you hit the ice, and you realize that there's something to this current that you can't put your finger on, but it's impeding your advancement. Now, this isn't only women. Many men don't have voices also. In an average corporation, Best Buy is huge, 155,000 employees. So the only way I felt that I could change this whole thing and to get the growth and to get the authentic voice of women, because that's the strategy I was driving, is I had to create teams. I had to artificially create cultures on teams where they would feel safe enough and supported enough to get their true idea on the table.
There's so many strong, intelligent, powerful women that work for this company, and if their number was multiplied by 2, then this company would go amazing places.
Because sometimes I think people don't have a voice out there, and this is just a way to give more people a voice.
There is someone out there that's recognizing the work that we're doing.
That feels really good.
Because this really isn't just about women, this is about all people who are committed to making this company the best company that it can be.
So it's just going to make our whole group even grow even more and closer, because we're going to get to know each other a little bit.
Everyone I've ever met from Best Buy is here. This has to be a really great program.
It will change the company as we know it.
I think that's a secret that shouldn't be kept.
It's allowing women to believe that they have a chance to be promoted at Best Buy.
We have 25,000 women in this company. If we unleashed them, how much greater could our company be?
It is time for us to unleash the power.
I had the first event in June, and then when I decided to do this full-time for the company, I knew I had to have another big event in Minneapolis, and it was a make-or-break event. Either people were going to get what Wolf was and jump on board, and I would get funding, or I would be fired. There really was no middle ground at all for this. And so I put $75,000 for this event on my personal Amex card. And I created these little cards. They didn't cost $75,000, but I created these little 4x6 cards. And every single place I went, I was handing them out. Coffee shop, grocery store, bar, to women executives who did not work for Best Buy. Now, the reason I did that was I wanted to start getting consumers interacting with our own employees and our own executives. But the other reason I did it is if I were fired, I had to go someplace to pitch this idea. And I would already have at least a mind share with them in companies throughout. There's 25 Fortune 100 companies headquartered in, Fortune 500 companies headquartered in Minneapolis. It's a really dense population of corporate big companies. And literally that same afternoon after the board meeting, we all gathered in a conference room much like this in Long Beach, California at the Hyatt. And it was my peers and my boss and the CEO basically doing a debrief on how the visit with the board went. So what'd they say? How many stores should we scale to? We're going to broaden our scope, things like that. And when I walked in, an individual named Cal Patel, Indian executive, really great guy, walked in. He said, "Julie, I haven't seen you for so long." I'm like, "Great to see you, Cal. Great to meet you again." And he said, "You know, I have to tell you something." "Okay, what?" And he said, "You're very respected in this company." Really? Because if you're an entrepreneur like I have spent my career, every single thing you do, people question. And the first thing they say when you start a new initiative, home theater or any other, is it's not going to work. She's going to take the company down. She can't have our own installers because it's too expensive. All these things that I had experienced time and time again. And when you live in that, you get used to it to a certain degree. But I was just surprised at this feedback, that he would say this. And I said, "Wow, thank you." And then he went on to say, "But, you know, not everyone likes you, Julie." I'm like, "Cal, you know, I mean, I am a businesswoman. I'm aggressive. I take risk to drive out growth. I get that. I mean, this is a male-dominated industry. It's okay." And he cut me off, and he said, "No, actually, the ones that hate you," which I don't know about you, but that's great to hear walking into a debrief from a board visit, are actually the female executives. Yeah. And that one left a mark.